Hello, hello. All right, everyone, if you would take your seats. Hello. We are about to begin. I need my glasses because I'm a woman of a certain age. All right. Do you want to sit or stay? Only one mic. I think this will work. All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming. My name is Marin Trasciatti. I am a member of the board of Long Island Jobs with Justice. So I work with the incredible people who organize this event today. I am also the director of the Labor Studies program at Hofstra University. And I'm really grateful to be here. I thank you all for coming, and I thank Ani and everyone at LIJWJ for asking me to do this. It's really a pleasure and an honor to be here. So I think it's fair to say, I think you all will agree with me, that we are in a moment of crisis right now. And I mean that in the classical sense of we are rapidly approaching a T in the road, so to speak, where we will have to make some decisions. Are we going to go left towards social democracy or right towards authoritarianism? And that crisis is economic, it is social, it is environmental, it is so many things. But the situation isn't hopeless. I think you will also agree with me that there is something in the air right now. There is a sense of possibility. I see it in my students, I see it in my friends and my neighbors, and I feel it here with all of you today, and I certainly feel it with Jobs with Justice. We have right now, I think, the opportunity to make real and lasting change on Long Island, in New York, in the US, and around the world. The challenge, and I think you will agree, is to build a movement by, for, and about working class people. And that, I think, is the only way forward. To demand a better world, a better Long Island, a better New York, and a better world. And one of the things I love about JWJ, and I think you all will agree with this also, is that they are a key element of this moment, right? With, I think the example that Jobs with Justice sets here on Long Island and around the US with coalition building, with labor, faith, and community groups really is an essential model for how to move us forward and envision and create the better world that we all deserve. And I'm really honored to be here with these three panelists because they are doing that work. They are doing the work of centering the experiences and the voices and the efforts of working people. They are themselves working people. They are doing the hard work of building coalitions and in some cases of actually achieving what many thought was the impossible. And so I'd like to now center them in this conversation and talk to them about ways that we can learn from the work that they've done and we can envision that better future with working people at the center, right? So empowering working people, but working people empowering working people. And so I'm going to give you a very, very brief introduction for all three. You can read about who they are in the program, and then we'll have some questions that they will answer. We'll have a conversation up here, and then I'll throw it to you and open it up for your questions and comments and input. So let me first, if you could just put your hand up, Noemi Barrera. She's an organizer for Local 338, RWDSU, UFCW. And she's she played an important part in unionizing the first group of farm workers in New York after the passage of the 2019 Fair Labor Practices Act. And I gotta say, as a Hofstra professor, a round of applause for Jessica Ramos, too, who was instrumental in getting that law passed. I'm an example of government working for us. Our second panelist is Nadia Marin Molina. She's the co-executive director of NDLON, and she is leading the worker centers and worker rights areas of work. So welcome to Nadia. And then, last but not least, Christian Smalls, the founder and president of the Amazon Labor Union, an independent, democratic, worker-led labor union at Amazon in Staten Island. And it was, of course, as you know, the first Amazon warehouse to unionize in the U.S. So welcome, and let's get started. I'm going to be a little bit ruthless with time, just so that we get everything covered. So I'll let you know how much time you have, and then I'll kind of signal when we're reaching that time limit, just so we have an opportunity to really talk. So I'm going to start first with you, Mr. Smalls. Amazon Labor Union's success in organizing a union at the Staten Island Amazon warehouse was a stunning and exciting victory. Negotiating a contract with Amazon is the next hurdle. So could you tell us how the contract negotiations are going? And can you tell us how the challenges that ALU is facing in contract negotiations compare to the challenges you faced when organizing the union?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. So I know it's in union time. It seems like it's been a long time since we won this historic victory on April 1st, but it's only been 6 months. And as far as the contract, we're not even there yet because the company has been stalling that process, which we all know as a tactic of these corporations to stall these processes out, knowing that the board, the NLRB, is underfunded and understaffed. So we've been in court for 55 days, over 25 objections they had, which was dismissed about a month ago. So the board is ruling that we are to be certified, which has now been a month. We are waiting for that certification. It should be any day, hopefully next week. Once that happens, we are now officially allowed to order the company to come to the table and bargain for the contract. So we haven't even begun the contract negotiations. But in the meantime, every worker, all 8,300 plus members at JFK Staten Island, they have definitely been operating as a bona fide union. They are under the protection of our legal team. We filed numerous ULPs on behalf of workers. We got 10Js, we got national agreements. We have other campaigns that are launching. Pretty much every so often you're gonna hear about new campaigns. We're not gonna stop organizing, and all of these things are gonna help bring the company to the table. So for right now, we're just gonna continue to organize, continue to apply pressure. There's a huge event that I'm gonna talk about later on that Andy Jassi's coming to New York City, so I'm gonna need everybody outside to welcome him. and we're gonna continue to push forward. The ALU is here to stay forever.
I mean, just to follow up, or just to press a little bit. So the challenges that you face now, how do they compare with the challenges that you faced when you were organizing to get the union off the ground?
Yeah, like you mentioned, being at the bus stop for over 300 days, campaigning for 11 months, and winning that historic victory, that was just one campaign. Now we're beginning all over again. This is the second fight, and this is the most important fight. So the complications that we're facing is definitely the fact that we're going up against a $1 trillion company still. And it's still uncharted waters for any union, not just Amazon, but Starbucks and all these other unions that are forming and really going public now. We're going to face the same thing, that the company has millions of dollars to spend on these lawyers. Meanwhile, we have to really keep the members engaged while we go through this process. This process can take anywhere from 1.5 years to get a contract from the time you win your election. So for us, it's just keeping members engaged, staying creative, and really just continue to expand the Amazon Labor Union and other facilities. One building that represents almost 9,000 workers is not going to be enough. And just like the 200, 300 stores with Starbucks, and they still got, 14,000 stores left? So we have to understand that, we all got to be David versus Goliath. When when the president gave $10 billion of tax dollars to Jeff Bezos to fly in the penis rocket, that should make everybody upset, not just the ALU. So once again, we all got to hold these politicians accountable. We got to make sure that they're writing bills and getting them signed, not just writing them. We got to shout out Governor Kathy. We got to make sure she signed the Warehouse Worker Rights Protection Bill. We shout out Jessica Ramos already. These things are important, these small little details. And, the challenges we're going to face it's going to be enormous. But as you've seen and what we've done, when people come together, there's no amount of money that can stop us.
All right, thank you for that. So, Noemi, this question is for you. Passage of the Farm Laborers Fair Practices Act has opened the door for union organizing among agricultural workers on Long Island, with Pindar vineyard workers being the first farm workers to join a union. And we're all going to drink Pindar over the holidays, right? We'll see. Keep us posted. Or maybe we'll say we will if. So can you say a bit about what this new opportunity has meant for your organizing work and how you've been able to build community partnerships to reach workers?
Sure. So Pindar's victory opened up more doors because a lot of the workers realized that, there really was no, I want to say fear, but they realized that their rights were protected finally after so many years. So it kind of opened doors for other workers to kind of join in on the movement. I mean, there's still some fear, and here we are a year after being certified, and we're still at the bargaining table. And as you've all heard today, they're actually refusing to come to the table, which is why we're picketing outside both the vineyard and also their wine shop in Port Jeff. Now, as far as coalition work, we've been able to work with different organizations out on the East End. I mean, it's a statewide campaign, but specifically ourselves, we've partnered with several organizations, one of them being Rural Migrant Ministries. We've really had to think outside the box because it's not your normal organizing campaign. So myself, I don't know if you saw the video, I had to start teaching ESL to kind of connect and bond with these workers because it's not just about organizing, it's creating a movement and kind of also connecting with these workers on a personal level. So, yeah, that's I think I answered all of your questions, right? I lost track.
No, I think that's really interesting. It what you said about the law, it's almost like the law was, the new law was kind of consciousness raising, right, for workers because they can say, yes, I am protected, I do have rights. I don't know if you want to comment on that. I mean, what actually it meant, what people were saying to you, what you heard and saw, because we hear a lot about how we need more pro-labor legislation. So, I mean, I think your example shows what it really means on the ground.
I mean, even with the law in place, there's a lot of fear. So getting the word out, educating these workers, knowing that there's nothing to fear, is, I think, the most important thing. And as a coalition, as a local, as different unions, we're trying to get that word out, not just to organize, but to educate these workers. They might not need us now, but at least they know that these laws are out there to protect them now. And, they have people that back them up.
Thank you. Okay, this next question is for Nadia. The October 2021 Department of Homeland Security memo on worksite enforcement has opened the door for workers to come forward about employer exploitation and abuse. So I think there's a theme here, right, about the law and what it opens up and enables. Can you say a bit about this announcement and what it's meant for your organizing work and the new possibilities for worker organizing?
Thank you. Yes. So maybe before talking about the memo itself, where it came from is that we made an analysis and said, well, the federal government is saying that it wants to protect workers, right? But as Chris was saying, the NLRB doesn't have the resources, and other agencies are the same. I have some statistics, wanted to make sure to have them for you all. Federal OSHA, which is the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, has less than 1,000 inspectors for the whole country. The penalties for killing a worker are at the most $10,000. Government spending on labor standards enforcement, this is DOL and OSHA together, federal, are $2 billion. And compare that to government spending on immigration enforcement, which is $24 billion. So where are the priorities of our government? Are they really on protecting workers? No, they're not. And so we said, well, the scales are against workers, right? You can see where the priorities are is where they're putting the money, and the money is not being put to protect workers. And so one of the things we're pushing for is to say, if you really, Biden administration, want to protect workers, what you need to do is to show that you're gonna help tip the scales in the other direction, right? It's not enough to say it, you have to do it. And one of the ways that they can do, and they have the authority, we don't have to wait for Congress, the Biden administration can, is to give workers who come forward and speak out about a labor abuse, about wage theft, about health and safety, if they file a complaint, they can request and get deferred action, which is an immigration protection, from the administration. And so we want to make sure that they do that, and that they show that they're not protecting employers, but they're actually putting their energy behind protecting workers. And so the fact that they have started to open that door, they haven't done it at all, I wouldn't say 100%, but they've started to. And the fact that they have started to do that means that there is more of an opening. Some unions are starting to use it for union organizing, because a union can go to the NLRB, for example, and say some workers were threatened in this union organizing campaign, and use that to be able to request deferred action. So there's a lot more potential there as well.
I don't know if you just wanted to follow up and say anything about how your particular work has been affected by this memo?
Sure. So our work, one of the things that we've seen is we have, like many of you know, wage theft, for example, is a huge issue. Health and safety, hazardous health and safety conditions are a huge issue, and yet workers don't necessarily come forward, right? And so through this campaign and through this organizing, it's interesting because the strongest workers coming forward have been in Georgia, for example, where there were 6 workers killed at a poultry plant, and their co-workers then came forward to demand that they be protected. In Nevada, where workers are fighting against a construction contractor, that was in the video that we showed before, and in some of the places that you would think that there isn't that much protection, right, or where workers wouldn't come forward. In Mississippi, the poultry plant workers who were arrested in one of the biggest raids under the Trump administration, right? So it's allowed us to really support and organize workers all over in different parts of the country. New York actually hasn't been kind of in the leadership on this, and so it's shifted our work, but I think in a really good way towards organizing.
I'm glad you mentioned organizing, because the next question is for all 3 of you, and it is specifically about organizing. So organizing is, or should be, about empowering workers. And so if you could just take a few minutes to tell us, what can we do to make sure that workers are at the center of organizing? And why does this matter, that we really center workers in organizing? Does anybody want to take a first step?
Yeah, putting workers in the driver's seat is the ultimate power. You know, that's why they go so hard to stop it. because they know giving us what we want, it's going to change the culture of not just the workplace, but really society overall. Even when it comes to independent worker-led versus established unions. You know, everybody was like, why did you guys not affiliate? I'm like, well, Amazon's been around for 28 years. These unions had plenty of time. So we had to do something different and that worked for us, and putting workers in the independent worker-led union and making sure that they know the ins and outs of the company, knowing the language, knowing the grievances, living these realities. Even myself, being a former Amazon worker, that's all important. That mattered to these workers. And what the biggest fear is, obviously, going up against the status quo. And people don't like the fact that we're independent. People don't like the fact that I'm black. People don't like the fact that I look like I do. They don't. And it's breaking down these stereotypes. When they invited me to the White House, I told them, I'm coming as is. They wanted me to take off this and that. So I said, you know what? Don't invite me. You know, don't invite me. I had on the 11s, the Jordans. But you know what? It's just about changing that narrative and getting that narrative, you know, out of here. Because, you know, representing the working class, this is how we look. You know, we come from New York. We come from our communities. These corporations and businesses set up shop and reap the benefits and exploit the workers from our communities. So we got to represent that at every level, on every platform. And I just think that's what you're starting to see now. The new generation of labor looks like this, looks like Starbucks workers, look like Trader Joe's, Apple, Home Depot. All the new up and rising of the labor movement is going to be the younger generation. And we made unionizing cool again.
As someone who teaches college students, I can say that's really true. It is very cool now, and you're cool. But you didn't need me to tell you that. So, anyone else want to address that question about the importance of centering workers and organizing?
I mean, I would just say, I think that there's a lot of times when maybe it's as a society, right, we look to the answers from lawyers, right? We say, well, we have to be able to file a lawsuit and, you know, change something. Or we look to the answer from a legislator, right? They're gonna pass a law and it's gonna change something. And the truth is, it's not. It doesn't come from there. I think we've seen it again and again. Even you fight so hard to pass a legislation, for example, and if you don't have organized workers who are going to make it real, it doesn't make a difference at all. And so that's why. That's why it's so important to make sure that when you're talking about organizing workers, you actually are. And it's not to say that that's easy. It's the hardest work, right? In that sense, I think it's actually easier to do policy, right, and to come up with papers and that kind of stuff. It's actually easier and, you know, works faster in some ways. But it's not long lasting, right? And the reason is what Chris was saying in particular, that employers fight back, employers retaliate, not just through immigration, but through, you know, firing, store shutdowns, like all of that stuff. And so it's a real fight to do any of this. And, you know, the employers know that if workers unite, they don't have a chance, right? The companies don't have a chance, and they know that, which is why they fight so hard to stop it.
So I guess just to piggyback on what everybody else has said, but our demographic's a little bit different because we deal with a lot of immigrant workers. So we basically have to get the word out, and putting the workers in the center of this all kind of shows the other workers that they don't have to live in that fear, that there's actually people backing them up with legislation, and also putting people into the right positions to have that legislation passed. So even with the races that, you know, went by just recently, you know, we were all out there canvassing, making sure that we're putting the right people in the same positions, or putting new people in the same in other positions. So letting them know that they're not alone, putting the workers out there themselves. I mean, our PINDAR workers were the only workers on the board for the 40-hour change for in the threshold. I'm sorry, I'm having a mind blank, but they were the only ones that gave testimony and actually showed their faces. And I think they had a huge impact in that legislation, oh my goodness, I can't say that word, passing from the 60-hour threshold to the 40-hour. I mean, it's gonna trickle down every 2 years, maybe 2 hours, but it's still going through, so that's what matters.
Thank you. Those are really important points. So another question for all three of you, kind of building on this idea of worker organizing and building worker power. Workers in the U.S. have always been organizing, right? Back until colonial times, whether quote unquote free labor or enslaved labor, right? And there have been work stoppages, efforts to organize collectively, even before the U.S. was founded, right? We can go all the way back to Egypt, and we know there were work stoppages in Egypt when the workers felt like they weren't being treated right as they were building these incredible structures. And every once in a while you have a moment where things feel really intense, and this moment is one of those moments. It just feels like things have shifted a little bit from how they were since the 80s. When we saw like a really sharp decline in organizing. What do you think makes now different? What's happened? What are you feeling? What are you hearing? Like, why is this moment different from other moments in the recent past, even, again, going back to the 80s?
Well, you're definitely seeing some historical, victories amongst major corporations that rejuvenated the labor movement, especially with the Starbucks and Amazon workers being victorious first in American history. That inspired, millions of people to not only get involved, but get back involved. Even traveling around the country, I've seen and met a lot of folks that come up to me and say, you inspired me to get back in the fight, or you inspired me to create my own union at, CVS. So these things are happening, and you're gonna see and continue to see all these new efforts begin to rise above. And I think we're in a different time, the 21st century. We're adapting to these corporations. They've been using technology, surveillance, police against us for decades, and now we're creating our own tools to fight back. What we're using, the creativity, the social media, the TikTok videos. I can tell you, if you watched our court hearing, their evidence was all our TikTok videos. So that tells you right there that these methods that we're using to organize are not traditional. They're adapting to the 21st century style of organizing. It's more face-to-face, it's more outspoken. It's not in secrecy. We're out front, we're vocal, and that provides a way of protection, because if you get fired as an organizer and nobody knows you're organizing, you're by yourself. But if everybody knows you're organizing and the company does retaliate, it makes it easier for us to file these ULPs to get you back in there, or force the company to be held accountable. So the way we're organizing, the style, it's very different. And I think we all seen the victories that really was a catalyst for all of that. And the pandemic, for sure, thinking about being deemed an essential worker, that means that we're a necessity. That means that the company needs us. So if they need us, they need to pay us as such. We all realize that for all these years and decades, we haven't been getting paid nearly as much. The inflation, forget about inflation, the productivity and the decline and increase of productivity and the decline are really stalemate of minimum wage. We're not even fighting for $15 anymore. We're fighting for 30, and that's not even that. We're fighting for more than that.
I hate going after Chris. So I think the pandemic has a lot to do with this also, you know. When workers became essential and then excluded and then forgotten. So I think that built up a lot of, you know, resentment towards their bosses, towards the owners. And us as a collective, you know, organization, unions, we were out there handing out masks, sanitizers. We worked throughout the whole pandemic. Myself, I've gotten COVID 4 times, so, you know, that's been fun. But I think the pandemic had a huge impact on this because they were like, here I am breaking my back or working all these hours. For instance, Pindar again, sold wine online. They actually had one of the biggest harvests they ever had during the pandemic, so much so they didn't have enough room in their warehouse to put the grapes in, so they had to actually sell out. And I think that cut of check was $1 million, I believe one of the workers told me, but yet they didn't pay their workers when they got sick with COVID. They didn't give them any type of incentive. There's no type of bonus or anything for having worked the pandemic, let alone as a whole. No type of vacation days, sick time, paid time. So I think it's the realization that unions are cool again, and they're there to help and protect, and we're slowly but surely coming back.
So I can't add much to that because I agree. I think that those are definitely the reasons. What I would say is that when I was thinking about this, that there's also a challenge, right? Because people are interested in organizing. People want to organize and are trying to figure out how, but also there needs to be support, right? For workers who are organizing, and at the same time, the right wing is organizing, and if we're not organized enough, right, they're using that anger and that dissatisfaction and the fact that people are saying, what the hell is going on, they're using that to blame immigrants, to blame, people in prison, to blame people who are homeless, right? Like, they're jumping on that. And so we need to be better and jump on that first to make sure that, we're going against the real targets, who are the billionaires who are profiting from all of this, right? So I do think that there's potential, but there's also a caution that we have to do more.
Yeah, I think you're right. And just to add to that, this is a moment of historically high approval for working people's organizing efforts and union campaigns. And so we do need to capitalize on that. And you all are doing incredible work to do that. And that, Nadia has this really great capability of giving me segues for the next question. So thank you again for that. My final question before we open it up, I'll ask you this question, and then feel free to add anything you want to your response, if you want to say a few other things, and then we'll open it up to the audience. I'm sure there'll be questions. How can those of us who aren't labor organizers, but who want to stand in solidarity with workers in New York and elsewhere, support the work that you do and the work that others are doing, current and future organizing campaigns? So help us help you, and what is it that we can do?
I'll go first, Chris. As far as us with our coalition, we did leave out some pins. I don't know if there's still some left. We also have pamphlets or papers that we could hand out. We are calling for a call of action. If you can't make it out to the picket line, we are asking you to call the vineyard to negotiate a fair contract. This means the world, because it'll be the first time that an agricultural entity actually negotiates a contract. And I think the resistance that they're putting forth is basically not wanting to be that first contract out there. We, in fact, have another vineyard also on its way to negotiations. We actually started negotiations. So whatever happens with this negotiation kind of, will resemble the other ones for future negotiations. So we're definitely putting pressure on them little by little. We are not asking for you to boycott them yet, but we are asking to get the word out. Like Chris said earlier, social media, TikTok. We've gone as far as TikTok, Instagram. I don't know what other platforms there are. I'm getting to that age where I'm starting to like kind of veer off social media, so I might be missing a couple, but yeah. So we will hand out some flyers. Please help get the word out. I know some of you have already stood with us on the line and will this weekend again. And hopefully it'll be the last weekend we're out there, you know?
Yeah, so for us, we're not campaigning right now, thankfully, in New York City, but we definitely going to have some demonstrations that the community can come out and support us. November 30th, I'm going to bring this up, because this is, every time I look at it. So November 30th, there's going to be a summit called the Deal Book Summit held by the New York Times. And in this summit, oh man, I lost my track. At this summit, you're going to have some speakers, some familiar clowns that you might know. So you're going to have Eric Adams. You're going to have Sam Bankman-Fried, from the founder of FTX. You're going to have the CEO of TikTok, the CEO of BlackRock, the CEO of Netflix, the CEO of Amazon, Van Jones, who Jeff Bezos gave $100 million to last year. Don't know where that money went. The president of the New York Times, I don't know who she is, Jessie Lewis, Choose Love Moment. The Prime Minister of Israel, the former Vice President Mike Pence. Now, I'm going to wait to say his last name, but I'm going to keep going. The U.S. Department of Treasury, she's going to be there. The President of Ukraine is going to be there. The CEO of Facebook, and then they got a performance from Broadway, Love Supreme, a little icing on the cake. Actually, no, I'm missing one, and this one right here hits home. The President and CEO of Amalgamated Bank. Anybody know who that is? So Amalgamated Bank is a union bank that holds all the money for most of the unions in New York, including the ALUs. And the mortgage. Oh yeah, and they definitely work with Jobs with Justice and other financial capacities. So this president is going to be in the same room as the CEO of Amazon and beyond, right? And they're coming to New York City on November 30th at Columbus Circle. I'm giving you all the details now to pull up. 8 o'clock, and it's an all-day event, right? Wow, I know, it's a nightmare. This is a nightmare dream, you know, and not only are we going to be demonstrating that day, we are actually, because of our brilliancy of filing ULPs as we see them, we filed a ULP against Andy Jassy a few months ago actually, when he went on CNBC and said that we don't need a union. So I said, that's a charge. And that board in Seattle has found merit to bring him to trial. So on February 7th, if you know anybody in Seattle, let them know that we're going to be out there demonstrating as well on February 7th. So in the short term, we got November 30th. We got Black Friday. There's a campaign called Make Amazon Pay. This is an annual thing, mostly social media. Please follow up on that. They usually just share posts about what Amazon malpractices are and union busting and beyond to amplify the workers' rights and voices. November 30th, I'm asking everybody here, please show up. If you know organizations that can bring people out, union leaders, activists, community leaders. I think this is a bigger fight than just the ALU with all these CEOs being in town. This is definitely representation of the working class, especially for New York State. This is a union town. 1 out of every 5 people know somebody or in a union. So if they're gonna come to a union town, we gotta give them a warm welcome. let them know that they got to meet labor at the forefront. So at Amazon Labor Union.org, at Amazon Labor Union, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Please stay tuned. We will be posting things there. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I would say do that and that. Do all of those things. For NDLON, I think maybe just if there are any of you here on Long Island that you have some situation that you identify where there are immigrant workers who are being retaliated against, please get in touch with me, ndlon.org. Our Instagram, we have a good following there, so you can also follow us there. But I think in terms of actions, you guys lead it out.
All right. So any final words before we open it up to questions for the audience? Anything else you'd like to say? All right, good. So now I open it up to you. Oh, yeah.
Sure, absolutely. November 30th, end of the month, that's when we're going to be demonstrating at Columbus Circle, and that is in New York City. I believe that's the Times, or I'm not sure what facility that is, but I'll have the details up on our social media. But November 30th at 8 a.m. Until 8 a.m. And February 7th. I don't know the time yet, but I believe that's the exact date we'll be in court in Seattle. I will definitely share more information as we get closer to the date. So, just follow us on social media, and myself at Chris Smalls, or on Twitter at @shut_down Amazon.
Other questions? Well, we're going to have to run it back. Oh, no. All right. You have questions.
Hi, thank you for your time. I got involved in organizing because I wanted to organize a union of yoga instructors on Long Island. The first issue I come to with that is that we're independent contractors. And I know that you've also stood on the picket line with the strippers in North Hollywood. So I'm wondering, this could be a broad question, but do you have any advice about organizing independent contractors and gig workers, specifically what the PRO Act would do? In addition to being an independent contractor with my yoga studio, I was an at-will employee. So the minute that I said yoga teachers, fitness instructors ought to be unionized, I was fired. So I'm wondering your thoughts on unionizing independent contractors.
Yeah, shout out to the stripper strike NoHo. They have filed and they're waiting for their results as we speak to be unionized. They're already a union as far as I'm concerned. They do an amazing job. And yes, they are independent contractors, but they have some really strong laws in California compared to New York. And that's another issue. There's a thing in California that they voted down called voted up. It was supposed to be voted down, Prop 22. I don't know what the law is over here yet. I'm not familiar, but I know as an independent contractor, most of these corporations, they make sure that they put the language. It's funny how they have a contract to make sure you don't organize, but in the language it says if you participate in any collective bargaining or collective action that you can be fired. That's what they do to these Uber drivers, these Amazon drivers that you see that are all over your community. Those are independent drivers. We can't even organize them. Because as soon as they find out that they are involved, they'll shut down their fleet or they'll move it to another location, just like that. So we try to be careful about who we bring on to let them know the risks because we're not there legally to protect them. So this is really a broader issue as far as legislation. Like we need to get with some senators like Jessica Ramos, that are really pro-labor and really draft up these bills to really get them passed to protect independent contractors. You guys should be able to collectively come together and form any type of entity that you want without being retaliated against. And I think there's some remedies now that the General Counsel already has, but it's mostly, it's now starting to expand from union members to non-union members. So we're still in that beginning phase, but I really think that organizing is the only way you're gonna apply pressure and really expedite things. So just because you're fired doesn't mean you can't organize the rest of them. You know, that's what happened with myself. You know, I was fired, but I spent over 300 days at a bus stop. Nothing stops you from organizing, and they can't fire all of y'all. So if you can get enough people on board, you show the company that there's a majority interest. You know, it's only an unsuccessful strike if you lose. But if it's a successful strike, then the company's going to want to come to the table. I mean, I'm pretty sure the yoga instructor or company that's employing y'all, they're not going to want to teach them classes themselves. So if you can get enough people, preferably the majority, start with a petition. You know, don't start with just signing up for a union right away. Start with a petition over something that y'all are fighting for. Maybe it's wages or health and safety or, you know, benefits. Start with something that people all can agree with first, and then start to slowly but surely get them on the union board or the union conversation. But in the meantime, organize to get these politicians to do their job. You know, we can all help in doing that.
Any other questions? And then,
Hi, my question is actually for Noemi. I would like to know if you can give us an update how the contract negotiation has with the farm workers, if they're already started or they're still waiting for it. Can you give us an update on that?
So we have 2 negotiations taking place. I think the first one I'll mention is Pindar's. We're at a standstill with them. We're at the bitter end, unfortunately, where we're actually having to go into mediation because they won't come to the table. We have another negotiation with Palmer and Pominock, also another vineyard, and they just began. So that's all I could say on that.
we had a question right here.
As a general rule, I try to just like boycott companies that I don't agree with, but I'm just one person. So I heard you say, somebody said, don't boycott Pindar because we would like them to come to the table. So call, let them know that we will buy their wine and are happy to do so once they take care of their people properly. How about like the big Amazons and the other giant companies? Is there any way to like leverage consumer wallets? I mean, I know Amazon runs everything. Everybody is so used to convenience. They don't want to shop. Like, good luck with that. But I mean, that's how I think you got to do it in this country, is hit them in the pocketbook.
Yeah, well, 2 things. 10 years ago, what were we doing? We wasn't ordering online with Amazon. I'll tell you that. You was going to the stores, going to the mall. You go to the malls and stores now, it's dead. You go to your local main street in your own community where you grow up, it's dead. It's because you keep giving your money to Amazon. I work there, and I don't even know what the craze is. I never ordered from there. So people gotta understand, we're the ones changing society to that. It's not, the companies capitalizing off of that. That's what they do. But if we continue to give our money to one company, we're destroying our own community right before our eyes. All your favorite stores, childhood bookstores, toy stores, they're gone. They're all Amazon now, the everything store. That's what they call it. The nickname for Amazon is the everything store. So we gotta ask ourselves, is it worth even shopping at Amazon? It's not even about calling a boycott because they don't, like you mentioned, they own 90% of the market. They own 75 or 79 different companies. They're looking at your healthcare, they're looking at your ring light, they're looking at your whatever, emails, you know, all the things that they own. You're already giving your money in some capacity to them. So to minimize that, I would just say shop somewhere else. Go directly to the manufacturer. May take a little bit longer, but it's obviously not giving your money to Jeff Bezos. So that's one thing. And really just, we gotta, once again, hold these politicians accountable, because Amazon is a monopoly. We all know that, you know, and the antitrust has been broken. It's been broken. They brought them a trial during the pandemic and gave them a slap on the wrist. They had this woman on there crying that she lost her bookstore to Jeff Bezos, and he got a slap on the wrist. And nothing happens to these billionaires for their repercussions of getting data, selling it, and making products. Amazon-owned products is stealing somebody else's work. That's what they're doing. They make sure that you are a seller for Amazon. If your product starts to do good, guess what they do? They slap an Amazon logo on it and they sell the product and put you out of business. They know that. They're watching all your data. They see the money coming in. So we gotta once again realize where we're giving our money to. And yeah, 10 years ago we wasn't doing this. We were not doing this. I know I wasn't. I know I enjoy getting up. I still get up on Saturday, Sunday, and go to the mall or a store and shop in my local community, because I know the difference. And I know customer service is not ideal anymore, but that also plays a part in the way society is now. When it comes to organizing, you know, we couldn't even door knock. We couldn't even door knock during our campaign. And I'm not saying that legally we couldn't. No, legally we could. But the way we set up society to isolate people, people don't even want you knocking on their door no more. They curse you out from head to toe. They make you so timid. You go into these stores that are cashless, there's no human interaction. They don't even want you talking to nobody. So realize what we're doing to our society. These Amazon Go stores, these cashless stores, these kiosks that they're setting up in the airports, now they're setting up in McDonald's and all the fast food. Think about what are they doing? They're trying to stop humans from even interacting with each other. You can't door knock no more in these campaigns. People don't even open their doors. They don't even. Back in the 90s, early 2000s, I know when I grew up as a kid, your neighbors was like family. My neighbors would snitch on me if I had company before my mom came home. So it's a different society that we're living in, and we have to adapt to that. But we also have to remember where we came from. And remember that these corporations and billionaires is all about dividing people, and it's not just in the workplace. It's at home as well.
Oh. We had two people. Really quick about my own. Really quick about wineries. Is there any coming on that are in support of unionization that we can lift up and say, good job, let's shop there, let's support them, that can be held as an example of why this is, you know what I'm saying? Like, is that happening anywhere? And P.S. on the automation effort, especially in supermarkets, I will never use the self-checkout. And if you, the fact that those kiosks have longer lines than the individual checkout, you know, you're like taking away somebody's job, and you have to do your own, like I'm paying to do my own checking out, like hell no, I'm sorry. Like I want to give somebody the opportunity to have their own job, and I will never use a checkout, the checkout lane, and do my own. And a union shop only, UFCW shop.
Yeah, when I get asked if I want to do self-checkout, I say, if you pay me, I will check myself out.
So as a former, well, not former, we still represent a lot of Stop and Shops, formerly Wallbaums, you know, thank you. Those automated things take jobs away from our members every day. And I don't know if you've also seen Marty around the Stop and Shops, I believe it is, right? That big robot. Yeah, so. But going back to what you said, so I don't know if it was you, Chris, or you, Nadia, that mentioned something about their organizing. Same thing with the wineries. I mentioned Palmer Palmanac. The owner of Palmer Palmanac, the Masouds, he is actually the president. His name is Kareem Massoud. He is the president of the Long Island Wine Council, and they've been around for I don't know how long. I could almost guarantee you that Pindar is there, letting them know what's going on. So when you say, can you support that other wineries out there, I'm reluctant to say, yes or no, but they're all in cahoots. They meet, they're organizing. And this is one of my talking points, even with workers that I am currently organizing and the ones I've already organized. They know the law. They know what's going on at Pindar. They know what we're trying to negotiate. Guess what's happening in the other wineries that we haven't been able to organize workers in? They're matching our contract. How do you think that's happening? So I hate to say it, but we have to put pressure on Pindar. We have to. Not just Pindar, Palmanac, Palmer, and the rest of the wineries.
All right, last question.
How y'all doing? So my question is kind of piggybacking off what you said about the youth, right? Is there any strategy to help the youth be more informed with labor history and the idea that they can collectively bargain? Because from my recollection, I didn't really learn about any of this until out of high school, until I had the privilege of going into college and taking sociology and realizing that, wow, we actually do have leverage. So, is there anything that's done on the ground to teach kids that, yes, we do have more power than you're told, that entrepreneurship isn't the only route in life, that there is collective power in this society?
Oh man, you're lucky. You're in college. For me, it was 2.5 years ago. So, I got you, bro. Honestly, I say the same thing. I said, if you would have told me I could be as cool as a rapper as a union organizer, I would have did this years ago. It's true. I'm so serious. That's also a job that we also have to be a part of as a community and as the working class. These conversations start at home, with ourselves, with our friends and family, with our neighbors. And also these teachers, teachers are in unions, and I've been at their conventions, a number of them. And I've been saying the same thing. You teachers have the most important job because you're directly communicating with our children. Teach them the right history now. And not just teach them the right history, show them. And not just show them, bring in union leaders and organizers to the classroom. Don't just bring police officers and firefighters. I'll come to your school and I'll talk to the kids. I love the kids. And that's what we have to do. Union organizers, union presidents, teachers, rank and file members need to bring organizers and activists to the classroom. Let these kids interact with us. I saw a video, they brought Jeff Bezos in. They didn't even know who the hell he was. So it's like, forget about that. We need, like you said, business and entrepreneurship, cool. But there's other aspects of life, and we need to know the real history of this country, the real labor history, the right history, not just the Martin Luther King and the Malcolm X that they always give us. Because once again, people forget that Martin Luther King was killed at a union rally. He was rallying for the Memphis sanitation workers. People don't talk about that. So these things are, up to us, and also up to you know, really just creating this culture that unionizing and being a part of unions now is a good thing. You know, that narrative of being in corrupt unions and they keep bringing up Jimmy Hoffa and all this, every union is different. There's good ones, there's bad ones, nothing's perfect, but at the same time, giving people the right to organize and the right to be a part of collective action, that's what we have to be about. And it starts with our children, you know. I'm doing this because I don't want my children to grow up in a society where if they speak up, they get fired. You know, so it's up to these teachers. Let's get up in the classrooms. I will come to your school, I promise you, I will come. I know they'll come. Let's make it happen.
I've been working on Noemi to come to Hofstra. I will just say on that note, New York is one of the good states. I did a survey of labor history education in schools across the U.S. Most states, the curriculum does not require labor education. Texas, for example, you learn about the free market system, but you don't learn labor. So not surprisingly, states that have higher union densities have labor history in the curriculum. So it's something that really has to be pushed for. And that's a way to get involved. Thank you. I just want to add one final thing on that note and any other note, if there's any way that I'm always trying to volunteer the university too. If there are ways that we can do some public education through Hofstra also, get in touch. I'm happy to collaborate with you on some projects, and Chris will come, and we'll have a good time. So thank you to our panelists. Thank you to Jobs with Justice for hosting this.
And thank you, Marianne, for moderating the panel. Thank you so much, guys. That was amazing. They said it all, honestly, so I'm going to be brief. In the coalition building workshop, we spent like almost half the time talking about the power of relationships and building relationships. And from what you guys are saying, it kind of sounds like the system is actually preventing us from being in relationship with one another to the point where we have no idea what is going on in each other's lives and what workers are facing. And so the solution to that is to show up for one another. Right? We show up for each other's fights. We stand in solidarity, and we give each other the time that we all deserve so that we can actually thrive and survive. And so we've got a couple of call to actions that we got from the group. So for certain, show up tomorrow and on Sunday at the Pindar store in Port Jefferson. The information is in your program from 1 to 4. They're going to be out there picketing in front of the store. The last time they were out there picketing in front of the store, they closed early. So it's really crucial that we turn out in even more numbers. So please, as much as you can, show up tomorrow or on Sunday. Show up on November 30th in New York City. That really is quite a gruesome lineup, I have to say. My God. And the one effort we didn't talk about, we tried to elevate workers. I want to give one more shout out actually to 1199 because I saw you guys brought some more workers in here. So I want to say thank you to the workers from the Maria Regina Nursing Home for showing up. But there are workers, there are cleaners who are represented by 32BJ who are also in an active fight right now at, is it 1991? Okay, I don't know if I should have read it out as 1,900, but at 1991 and 1999 Marcus Avenue. They got their first union contract September 1st of this year. Within 2 weeks, yeah, clap it up, because that's good. But talk about grimy employers. Within 2 weeks, they had a bid out for another cleaner to contract with the buildings. And so since then, the workers have been uncertain as to whether they're going to have jobs. And they've offered extensions, which is wonderful, in that the workers keep their jobs. But it seems as though it's becoming a strategy to offer extensions so that perhaps, we stop caring, we're not as active, and so that's certainly not the case, and we don't want anybody to think that's the case. We want people to show up, we want people to turn out. So in your program, you'll also have a call to action to call the building owners, the Lazarians, to say that, one, the workers need to keep their jobs, and in the event that they do get a new contractor, that contractor has to honor the union contract and has to make sure that those workers keep their jobs. So we're also asking you all to please make that phone call. And I'm serious, like, please, maybe not on a Friday at 4 o'clock. It's fine, leave a message. Call them back on Monday too. But please, these phone calls really, really are important, especially when these employers are expecting us to not be in relationship with one another. They are not expecting these phone calls. So if they get 70 phone calls today when we leave, that is a lot, please. And also, if you can't turn out tomorrow or on Sunday, call Pindar. Call every single number that's listed here. You have 3 options. Call them, please. This is the way that we show up. This is the way that we support workers when they themselves aren't able to be here with us because they're working. They're breaking their backs doing the jobs that they're doing. And so this is how we can support. So please do so. Lastly, I just want to say thank you so much to everybody who came out today. We'll take a group picture, actually. If at the end of this, everybody could come up to the front, it would be amazing if we got a group shot with the panelists and everybody here today. But I just want to say thank you to all of you for committing so much of your time and energy to this conference today. We are building something. We are building power just by being in the same room together. I'm sure everybody here, can we do this after? Appreciate it. We are building a movement by forming relationships with one another, by making sure that we know what each other's fights are. It requires creativity. It requires imagination. It requires us doing more than what we have so far. We've done a great job up until this point because we're still building power with what we've had. But we need to do more, and we need to be open to new possibilities, and we need to be open to the unknown of us working together, collaborating together, and honestly leaning into figuring this all out together. So thank you, everybody, for being here. This was awesome. So this closes our conference. We hope you'll be back next year, but we hope you'll be back for all the other things that we have in store. And yeah, today was just wonderful. I thank you all so much. And thank you to everybody who made it possible.